I am your host, Adrian, and I am joined once again by Dylan.
Hi everyone, my name's Dylan.
And today we're actually going to revisit a very, very special topic that we did a few episodes ago. And we knew that we were going to do a part 2 of this. So welcome, listeners and audience, to Dungeons and Dragons Discussions Part 2.
Yes, it's good to be back in the studio talking about this. I've missed our conversations.
Yeah. So I wanted to start out by saying, in the old podcast, I mentioned that I would be starting a new campaign soon, and I just wanted to make a little announcement that campaign has started, and it's going really well so far. I've learned how to do features and different classes, different races, combat, ambushes. I've learned a lot recently, and it's going really well. The story's very deep and intricate, and I look forward to being able to host something like this for you guys. Dylan?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how you manage to do like an actual D&D campaign instead of our homebrew type things. It'll be interesting to see what actual D&D gets up to, because I've yet to actually experience that myself.
In case anybody has forgotten, just a little reminder, our D&D is not like the usual. We do like a homebrew, very simplified mechanics, a lot more roleplay focused. That's just to remind the audience of what we really do. But now that announcement's over, do you have anything you need to announce?
No, I don't really have any announcements. As of right now, we've kind of been sort of stuck, per se. Not stuck exactly, but we've been kind of backtracking, essentially. We haven't really gone forward and done like a bunch of main quest stuff in the campaign I'm running, and that's the fault of no one in particular, but we just need to get back on track and get focused, because we were supposed to be doing like a demon exorcism, and we've just spent like the last 2 sessions not doing anything involving that. So I just want to make sure coming up here next week we get back on track.
Speaking of D&D and such, since we are discussing this, Dylan, I remember a certain thing that I stated back in the last episode. We'll roll the clip again.
Where you guys sacrificed your characters, then led to the situation where we stumble across our dear, faithful antagonist of this saga, Zagan.
Oh, because we are not getting into him yet.
Well, that's the.
So remember when I said that, Dylan?
Yeah, Adrian, I remember it all too well.
We're talking about him now. Let's talk about our fateful antagonist, Zagan.
So, what do you want to talk about the worst decision of my entire life, Adrian?
Let's talk about how that boss fight went exactly.
Do we want to bring that boss fight up now, or do we want to give the audience backstory so we can build up to just how bad it came out to be?
Let's give some context. Let's go ahead and give some context.
How far back would you say we need to go for context for Zagan specifically?
It all started with the death, or supposed death, of Gerald King, Psycho, and Samantha King. At least we all thought that they had died in some way, but really they escaped to another timeline.
Yes, and after Adrian was down his 3 characters he was playing at the time, which goes into my whole problem of my players back when I was just starting out, would play multiple characters. It only was Adrian and Mormon that did that, by the way. No one else really.
Technically, I played 2, and the third one was locked in prison, so I couldn't really play it. But he did exist.
That is correct. But after the departure of the King family, Adrian needed a new character to play. So the next thing that I had kind of in plan for my campaign was for the party to travel to the underworld and rescue Jack Grimm's daughter, Maria Grimm, from the underworld. So what better kind of character to have Adrian play his usual self being... If you've seen any of his other characters, you'd understand this, but when he showed up for that campaign, that game specifically, he made a new character called Zagan, a demon from the underworld. A very popular demon, mind you. Would you like to give them a little bit of Zagan's backstory?
Context for Zagan, and context as to how I was allowed to do this as well. So, starting off, Zagan was a prince of the underworld, and one of the most powerful ones as well. This is because Dylan, at the time, allowed me to be as powerful as I wished, so long as he could beat the crap out of this character in the next campaign.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's the whole reason you made the deal with me being a powerful character.
I completely forgot that's what happened.
You made it so that I could like sit back, enjoy the campaign, not be involved, but be powerful enough to at least have a point in the story. Story-wise, I was important. Mechanic-wise, I was broken.
Your character, for story purposes, was one of like the most important characters in the underworld. Really a shining star per se. I'd have to look at the actual like Google Doc where I put all my notes into like one cohesive story to see exactly how many times your name is brought up. But I'm sure it's one of the most prevalent names in that entire like 100-page Google Doc.
Right next to Ted. I'm pretty sure he showed up a lot. So Zagan was an OP character, and for those who don't know, OP is short term for overpowered.
Overpowered is putting it lightly when we get into later bits of
definitely.
Bits of lore.
Definitely. Bits of the lore making him that, all that, it's so much. So Zagan was Prince of the Underworld. He was the prince of the very first ring that they went to, because we did it like Dante's Inferno or the 7 Rings of Hell.
Yeah.
Which
each ring corresponds to like one of the
different sins. And what Zagan was pride, obviously. Obviously, Zagan was an extremely egotistical type character, very prideful, very full of himself because of his level of power. He even had the king in a chokehold just because of his power. So, of course, it all went to his head, and he played as a real jerk. Made a lot of fun at the party members, did not get along with them at all, but they knew he was still needed. So I wasn't really like a typical party player, and I wasn't really a co-host either. I was more playing one of Dylan's... It was more of an NPC type situation, but I made the NPC just because of the way I was involved in this story.
I mean, you kind of had like a hands-off approach and just, snap your fingers and some like powerful like underworld magic happened and you showed your dominance. But
any power that I used added to the story mainly. Like, I wasn't going off and just using it for stupid purposes. I mean, sometimes there was stupid purposes, but it never really screwed up your story.
You literally spent a portion during each ring where you would single out an individual character who had died from a previous game, mind you. And you were like, hey, buddy, vanish. And they just disintegrated, essentially. You threw an angel, who was dead, by the way, and in the underworld. You threw them up to, like, the ceiling of the underworld and splattered them. And then they just turned into, like a poof of feathers.
Technically, they were redeemed. They splattered because they poofed back into the world above.
Yeah, there was a few.
I resurrected them. I did them a favor. Come on.
The party resurrected a few souls, but you were disintegrating them beyond repair.
Oh yeah.
You were not of the.
I had to play the character.
And you have yet to play a good-hearted character since, mind you.
Yeah, that is true. I don't really do good guys. They're kind of boring to me. I need some morally ambiguous stuff.
But I believe we're getting off topic. We got to make sure that they understand why the Zagan fight is the trash standard.
The downfall of the entire campaign.
That was my lowest point as a DM, I believe.
I think it was my lowest point as a player too, so don't worry.
I think that has to go on my... You know how you put, like, crowning achievements from your child on your fridge?
Yeah.
I gotta put, like, this one on, like, the
crowning
dumpster.
Disappointments.
Yeah, I gotta put it on, like, the dumpster because it was just that bad.
So, continuing on, Zagan ended up becoming, like, super powerful. He actually did overthrow the king and became king instead of a prince, but was betrayed by a smaller demon.
For context, the party, upon reaching the underworld, was greeted at the gates of the underworld by, like, just this little demon guy who was like, hey, I'll be your guide through the rings today. And then he, was there the whole time. He was guiding them through the rings. But secretly, and I feel like you called this, like, the first session, and I never confirmed it because I didn't want to spoil the surprise months in advance. But, like, he was secretly the BBEG. And he then, as Adrian here usurped the throne of the underworld, the BBEG was gathering power from various souls he'd collected in the underworld. And he broke out of there and began devouring various planets. Galactus type thing.
Yep.
And Zagan was now crowned the king of the underworld. So he was able to get the party out of the underworld with just like a snap of his fingers.
Mm-hmm. I was very powerful. But, of course, the party still needed my assistance because they couldn't deal with the world-eating monster themselves. Yeah.
And this is the part where I was reminded just today even, apparently I had the BBEG tear a new hole in Zagan.
Yeah.
And I remember it now. He, like, threw you into the ground. I think he flicked you even.
Yeah.
And you, like, tunneled into the ground, a la, everything that's ever been buried into the ground by a flick of the finger.
Real Invincible style.
This was before I even knew Invincible was a thing, by the way.
Yeah, but it was very... very akin to that.
I think we've discussed outside of the studio that Zagan is basically... I don't remember the actual character's name, but, like, the worm guy.
Stand ready for my arrival, worms.
Yeah, that guy. I don't know his name.
It was Conquest.
He gives those vibes, yeah.
I'm so lonely. All the other Viltrumites are scared of me. No one talks to me. No one wants to be my friend. They think I am unstable.
Fast forward to...
Zagan loses his powers.
Because in order for some higher power, some various entities that live outside of time and space to step in... Yes, the five. I was just explaining what they were. But the five were going to take care of the BBEG and, bring him down to size for the party to destroy him permanently. And in order for them to do that, the party had to make some sacrifices. And Zagan, seeing as he was prideful and didn't really care about anyone or anything else, the only thing he could sacrifice was his power. So he had to give it all up in order for the five to take care of the BBEG.
Which made him human again. Because he was human before he was a prince of the underworld. His name was Sebastian.
And Sebastian was... I think, honestly, Sebastian was more engrossed in the story than Zagan was, because he had skin in the game, literally. He was mortal. He could die. So he had to kind of, be involved, make sure he wasn't taken off the board. And then we defeat the BBEG.
But let's go back real quick.
Okay.
Because there's something I want to discuss.
Okay.
There was... You said the five.
Yes,
and
the five.
If you remember, Dylan, the five actually gave everybody a fraction of their power. For just like a moment.
Yes.
Do you remember what Zagan received?
I believe you received a trip to the future? No, I remember what you did now. Yeah. So Zagan was given the powers of creation. He could create one thing with his divine power he had now received. Do you want to say what you created, or shall I?
I held my hands high in the air. The clouds started to roll in as thunder struck, and Zagan began to speak, claiming that he alone would create a beast of unfathomable power and terror that would make everyone fear Zagan and his power. Something that would bring chaos and destruction amongst the world. And as he raised his arms and the light struck, he created a pug.
Yes, so Zagan created a pug aptly named Sir Pugsby. And then Sir Pugsby was Zagan / Sebastian's
Companion.
I was gonna say most loyal friend or something.
Oh yeah, that too.
So, given the fact that Adrian had just created a pug, obviously I had to be like, oh wow, no one's ever seen a pug before. What is that thing? So, in the lore of that campaign, no one had ever created a pug before, and Zagan was the inventor of the pug.
Pugs did not exist. This was just to make a funny bit in your game, which I still believe is one of the best bits in your game.
At least in that one, yeah. I would have to say the Pugsby bit's probably the best, yeah.
Definitely. The Pugsby was the one good thing of Zagan being a character.
But after that, and Zagan's power was drained away, the fight with the BBEG happened, and the Five did their part because everyone did their sacrifices, and they were able to defeat the BBEG. And then we move on to Zagan's homeworld.
But before we do that, the Five had to erase, or reset, I guess, certain worlds. But it wasn't the Five that did it.
So the plan was, because the BBEG had destroyed every other world out there, that the Five were going to have to recreate the entire universe, right? And before they could, in steps a familiar character, one that almost shouldn't be in my campaigns, but he fits pretty well, honestly, all things considered. It was the Other from the zombie game.
For those who do not know, the Other is basically a deity that creates worlds and also characters. He makes everything you see, everything you touch, everything you do. He is the creator. There is another one of him known as the Storyteller, but we don't need to get into that one.
But the Other showed up and he basically created a new universe. However, we never really got a chance to explore any of that because we just kind of stayed on Zagan's homeworld for the rest of the campaign.
That is true.
So I guess we never even needed to do that, but it's been a year now. I don't think.
However, to explain why the Other was even in your game is we have a lot of things that make our games connect. Even if they're different universes, we technically have a multiverse that's the same.
If you'll recall from earlier when we said the Kings departed my campaign, they ended up in some kind of time vortex. And they ended up, I believe, 400 years in the future.
Within my campaign.
In the zombie game. So, when I was playing Mike Kitzelberg in his zombie game, we came across the King family, but they had aged a little bit, given...
Quite a bit,
yes. Samantha had grown into...
It had been 40 years.
It had been 40 years.
Samantha was now a mother who had 2 children.
Gerald was an old man.
Very old. He was around 80, 90 years old.
I believe we actually watched as he passed away.
Yes, he passed away in that campaign, finally.
He survived a spaceship exploding and falling into space without like a mask or anything.
He survived so much and died of old age. Honestly, he went out like a king.
He really did.
Pun not intended, but it fits.
It does. And it's not even that connects the campaigns. That's definitely a big sticking point, but there's various other things.
But that was the first, I believe, of the real connections to our universe, like the true canonical connections of our worlds.
Like, previous ones would have been just Easter eggs, but that's like the first
Previous
concrete.
ones were just like jokes or Easter eggs, but the first concrete one was the King family incident. Back to the topic, though. The other was technically above the multiverse. It was a being that was beyond space and time. So it could exist in every universe. It was a universe, essentially.
It's a sound way of putting it. So, after he had remade the universe, the party ended up at Zagan's homeworld. And that was the turning point where we started to get to the lowest point of my career as a DM. Because that game where we were on Zagan's homeworld for the first time we were there, the second game, the pirate one, that's completely different.
So,
but the game itself, where we were on Zagan's homeworld, that was like my little, like, we were supposed to co-host that, essentially.
yes, we wanted to make it so that way I would be a boss, because if I remember correctly, you had actually come to me because you wanted me to make you guys a challenging boss fight, because you felt as though your fights weren't as difficult for your players.
Oh yeah, my fights still aren't that difficult, I'm gonna be honest. I've gotten a little bit better, but...
You wanted something that actually made them fear loss.
Yeah, that is just... That is a goal of mine in general.
And I wanted to co-host with you again, so we came up with a plan.
We certainly did. It was decided that Zagan would be the boss fight in question. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, but at that point, Zagan was just Sebastian, some random dude in a leather jacket. You're correct, but that's not where he ended up before the boss fight initiated. You wanna tell them about your rise to power again, or shall I?
I would love to, but I think we're gonna save it for the second segment. Please do tune back in, because we do have a very interesting story for this. And we will see you after this short ad break. Welcome back to the show. And I would like to continue talking about Zagan. So, Zagan's rise to fame, you mentioned. Well, he was looking for some magical items, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe that the Five had shown him a vision of his future, which also convinced him to go along with the sacrifice in the first place. They had basically been like, okay, you're going to lose your power for like maybe a week or two, but then you're going to come across a very powerful magical item, and you will become a big shot, essentially.
Yep. You will gain more power than you could ever imagine.
So, Sebastian, at the time, brought the party to his house, essentially, and introduced them to his extended family.
Yes.
And they spent about a month there just getting accustomed to their new living situation. I believe they went to a fast food restaurant. I don't remember the name of. It was probably some funny knockoff restaurant. But the police pulled up around them, And I don't remember why. I think it's because Sebastian scared like the underpaid employee working at the fast food place.
Oh, yeah, I remember. It's because Sebastian scared him so much that he felt threatened.
And then he called the police, yeah. So then
Even though Sebastian did not threaten him at all, he was just scary.
So then the party is brought before the mayor of the town they're in. And he's like, okay, there's like a wizard in the woods. I need you to like take care of him. He's being a problem. So then the party goes to deal with this wizard.
They do that, of course.
They deal with the wizard. And I believe you actually enjoyed this wizard as like a character.
I enjoyed this character as like a villainous character. I thought it was done very well.
I'm really glad.
It was.
I tried on that one.
It was the first villain I think Dylan pulled off well because, as people I believe should know by now, I am a huge fan of villainous characters, and so I like seeing them done right. I don't like cheesy ones as much, and no offense to you, of course, but most of your villains from before had been more so like the cheesy kind, or like no real motive, no in-depth like story, and that can be good sometimes. And again, it was him starting out, but it was something that I kind of wanted to see more of, and so when the wizard came, it actually gave me a little surprise.
Because his main thing was illusions, and he, I believe, pretty much had the entire party fooled to an extent.
And he had me fooled. What impressed me was the fact that you managed to pull one over on me, who normally would see through your games.
Yeah, because the previous BBEG, like I said, I think you, from the first session, were like, yeah, that little demon guy, he's going to betray us, isn't he?
Yeah, from the first session, I immediately pretty much called him out because it's always the first person you meet.
And in my space game, I had set up, like, a different antagonist BBEG character, but, like, I didn't actually set him up. The only person I really set him up for was Mormon, because he was actively working with him at the time, that specific character.
That game went completely wrong.
That game is also a little mark against my career, but...
Only because of the Mormon incident with him blowing up the spaceship, essentially.
Well, to be honest, that was one of my 3 planned out endings, and I didn't inform anyone that there was endings, I guess.
No, it was more so the fact that you didn't inform that one of the endings were going to be technically a TPK.
And that's when, obviously, I learned that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
So we've not done that since.
TPKs are never really a good thing. It's more so meant... Those are, like, just supposed to be, like, accidental things, and if they do happen, it's pretty bad, but you have to find a way to try to save it, like, make something good still happen.
Yeah, so I guess I gotta put that on the ban list when I get home.
TPK endings, banned.
Yeah. But this was the first villain that, like, actually landed somehow, and I don't know if I'll be able to pull another one of those off. Especially
Because it was illusion.
It was illusion, and...
Illusion is something that is extremely potent and powerful, and I don't understand why people don't use it more often.
My issue in my current campaign is you're playing a character that basically treats anything that isn't yourself that you're facing as, like, a joke anyways. So it's kind of hard for you to, like, take anything seriously. You did try to circumvent, like, an entire, like, pseudo-boss fight by throwing the enemy outside of a tower.
That is true.
But back to Sebastian. After they defeated the wizard, he had dropped a ring, which was a magical ring. And the wizard had then disintegrated because the ring also contained the power to keep you immortal. So then Sebastian picks it up, and he's like, haha, lol, I'm actually the bad guy. And he summons another demon who had been responsible for taking his powers in the first place. I didn't bring that up because I forgot it was, like, actually an important part of the story. But he summoned that demon back and took his powers from that demon. And then he became something known as the Hollow King.
The Hollow King was a legend. I never did get to actually explain the lore of the Hollow King, just because of how short time there was, but I did have, like, a whole story thing for the Hollow King. It wasn't always Zagan. There was originally another character named the Hollow King in myth, lore, and legend. The Hollow King was a soulless being, not a demon, a mortal. This mortal gained the ability of immortality and became a crazed tyrant with a lot of bloodlust and very, very dangerous, very intense. And so he was locked away in the underworld.
I see. And then, because the Hollow King Sebastian Zagan, that abomination creature, existed, it was time for another boss fight. Out of game, Adrian and I had been discussing for this boss fight and being like, okay, we need to have like character sheets down for like the various enemies to make sure this is like a semi-fair boss fight. And Adrian had been under a lot of stress between work and school and everything else. So he
I had been trying to find a new job at the time, I believe.
So he had rushed out a bunch of character sheets that were probably overpowered. Definitely
We never
overpowered.
did a test run with these or tried to, and I never got like any. We're both to blame for this.
We are both to
technically,
blame for
because
this.
I didn't take the time. I was under a lot of stress, and you didn't send me like what I would have needed. Like you didn't send me the player's character sheet, so I couldn't really go off of their power levels.
Well, again, this was before I was actually like keeping track of this stuff. So
Oh yeah.
for all
None
I
of us
know-
really had real character
No.
sheets to begin with, so I couldn't really base it off of anything. So I was just winging it and being like, okay, this sounds cool and scary, let's do this. This sounds intimidating and powerful, how about that for this character? This looks like something that could be very fun, let's try it. And it turned out that these things were just too strong.
I believe we almost resulted in a TPK off
We
of that.
did. It was a TPK, and the only reason that it didn't remain that way was because we had agreed that no matter what happened, if it ended in a bad way, everybody would be saved. So everybody went down, and that's when you know who returned.
The other came back to once again clean up a mess.
He saw how irresponsible the five were in leaving this and letting this future play out. And so enraged, he locked the Hollow King away, but he knew that it wouldn't be able to hold him. So he gave them an ultimatum. The other stated that in a year's time, or how many years was it?
It was like 4 or 5.
In about 4 or 5 years' time, the shell will break and the Hollow King will be released once again. And when that happens, the other will erase this universe from existence, wiping it clean of everything and everyone. So, basically telling everybody they had 5 years to live.
And that leads into my pirate game, which really isn't important to the story.
But that boss was extremely difficult, extremely overpowered. Just the players were underleveled. You even gave them NPCs to assist, and it was still not enough.
The NPCs died too.
Oh yeah, everyone died.
Everyone was down.
Except for like maybe the dodo bird.
I think the dodo bird.
The
may
dodo
have
bird was like
survived.
the only thing that survived, and all the players went down first. That's the only reason the boss ended, was because the players were all down first before the dodo bird.
I don't even know if the dodo bird was there. He may have been gone.
I think
ages
you
ago.
had the dodo bird just run away, I think, from what I remember. You just
I
had to
don't
fly
know.
away.
I try not to remember that.
But
That was-
it's another thing about that I actually wanted to mention before we go on is Pugsby, Sir Pugsby. When the Hollow King was locked up, Sir Pugsby actually waited all 5 of those years just right next to the capsule for his father, basically, to escape. It's like the only character that waited for him.
well, no.
Well, no, there was also his extended family. But that fight, extremely difficult, extremely overpowered, extremely hard, not really intimidating. So let's actually take a moment to talk about something that was intimidating. Isaac. Isaac was quite intimidating. So let me set the scene for you, actually. right?
Yeah, please do. It's been a while.
You are a group of 4 or 5, maybe, going into an abandoned military base during the zombie apocalypse. You enter the base, and you're not afraid because you have a guy that is like 6'9" with you, who is extremely strong and powerful. He's buff. He's like, if you took the top wrestler and gave him even more strength. He was insane. He was crazy. He could punch a tank and leave a dent. You have him on your team, so you're not scared. You're going into this, you're fine. You enter, and there's 3 different hallways that you got, and it's a team of 5. This tank says he will go by himself, and while the other 4 split into groups of 2. Inside this little room, though, is a statue. This statue stands still and has interesting designs. It's very human, but also very mechanical. You guys split up, and after a few moments, you hear a scream. It's your tank. And you go back, and you find he's gone, being dragged away by something. All you can do is follow the sound of the screams, and the closer you get, the more distant they seem to go. Until finally you enter a room where the trail stops, and there are scorch marks on the ground. It knows you're following it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Isaac.
So, Isaac was a robot. Isaac was originally drafted and put to Blueprint by a familiar character we've discussed a lot on this podcast episode already, Gerald King. Gerald had designed this specific creature, this specific automaton, to deal with his longtime rival, Jack Grimm. Now, he got tossed in a space void and ended up 400 years in the future, so he couldn't really do that, and he lost track of the blueprint. And then I don't remember who picked it up, but like an actual scientist got a hold of the blueprint.
We never gave him a name, we just called him the Doctor.
But then the Doctor was able to actually build this automaton, this machine, designed to defeat Jack Grimm. And Jack Grimm was not like a normal man, so this machine against normal men was like putting a teddy bear against a tank, essentially. And when we found our tank party member, it was an NPC, but the party member, who were like, oh, he's so strong, he could never be like injured by anything. I believe his leg was broken, or he was missing a leg.
He was missing his legs. Both of them, not just one.
Both of his legs are missing. Again, this is the guy who could punch a tank and leave a dent. He has no legs now. Because of the robot.
And that you could see clearly from when he was being dragged. And that wasn't the scariest part. That sure added to it. The scariest part was when you entered the room and you saw the trail end. Because of those burn marks. Because what did it do?
Cauterized the wound.
It got rid of the trail by making sure he wouldn't bleed anymore. Meaning it knew and learned that you guys were following it. And I still remember everyone's reaction to this day. Because I had stated the trail ended, and one of our players decided to investigate. Her character name was Adonis. And she said, can I investigate this, the end of the trail? And I said yes. And she rolled high, and I said, you can see scorch marks and burn marks on the ground. They're very fresh. And she's a medical student. She's going into like a lot of the medical stuff, medical field. So she knows a lot of that. She stated that it cauterized the wound. And our friend who played the character Julius was horrified because not a few seconds later, after she had said that it cauterized it, he came out almost with a whisper, he's learning.
That just brought back memories, man. I just got transported back to the moment. Oh.
Did you feel the chills?
I don't know what this is, but it's terrifying.
It was intense. And this thing, it played with you guys. Like, it purposely made you guys scared. Like, Julius locked himself in a room at one point, so it banged at the door to try to make it seem like it was going in. Like, it banged, though, in, like, a way that made it seem like a very stupid creature that could not actually get inside. And then it walked off, and Julius, he sighed. His actual player even sighed in relief at the fact that it was walking away. And he was like, okay, I try to open the door. I open the door, and I want to check if it's still out there. And I cut him off, and I'm like, the handle's broke. It wasn't banging trying to get in. It was trying to keep him inside from getting out.
I forgot you're good at psychological horror for a minute there.
That is my strong suit in D&D in these campaigns, is a lot of scary attributes. And that's just a few examples of Isaac, but that's basically the most intense parts of him. That's just the tip of the iceberg. So let's get, finally, into Sullivan White, the Locust.
And that, my dear, is why you'll never truly understand. You fight for survival, but you can't survive. Not in the end. One strike, one flick, and you'll all fall. The more you struggle, the more fragile you become.
So, you know how Isaac was able to break our tank's legs and turn what we thought was untouchable into very fragile? Sullivan kind of raised that bar even higher. At one point in the Season 2B, going to the old military base.
You guys returned there.
We had returned for... The reason probably isn't important, but we had returned once again fearing we'd run into Isaac. And instead what we found back in the library, where we mainly dealt with Isaac, was a pile of essentially spare parts at the end there.
The broken exoskeleton of Isaac, with the mask being cracked and damaged.
I believe he gave a farewell message. I don't recall what it was, but he said something before he turned off.
Isaac was capable of speaking for one short, brief moment. He had basically warned the party. Now, I want you to picture that. The robot that made their tank bleed, warning them. Just let that sink in for a moment.
You know it's bad when one of your worst adversaries is telling you something worse is coming. Fluttering out from the chewed up, what appeared to be chewed up exoskeleton, was a single locust.
A white one.
Which...
Albino locust.
You don't find a lot of albino locusts.
I don't even think they actually exist.
Which just tells you how bad this is, because Sullivan White's called the Locust for a reason. It's because he is just a hive mind of locusts. His body is made of locusts. He was once a man, but now he is just a swarm of albino locusts.
He was subject -1, technically. Because we learned who subject 0 was in subject 1. Patient 1, patient 0. For the apocalypse, patient -1, someone who didn't even exist in the files, was Sullivan White. They did not want him existing. All we knew about him was that he was a doctor in a past life who ended up dying in some unknown way. They never even recorded his incident. But what he had done was he had infected himself willingly with a very early on stage of the virus. And instead of just putting him to sleep, it actually killed him. And they had to bury him. His body decayed. And you know, when the body decays, it usually turns into worms and such. He turned into Locust. He was basically reborn from that.
And one of the other things that Locust did that made him such a powerful being is he went to the farm where the King family had settled down after their trip through time.
And this is the King family we're talking about.
The
which,
Kings.
just to mention, the Tank was one of the King family members.
Descended from Gerald.
Crimson King.
Descended from Gerald the Strong Man himself.
Grandson of Gerald King.
So, already, Isaac had torn into the spawn of Gerald. And then, Sullivan had gone to the farm as well. And
Julius was there for this.
Julius
he saw it.
Julius saw this. The entire farm was burned to ash.
Obliterated.
It was obliterated. There was nothing left of it.
And yet,
I believe we saw yet another locust just escaping from the destruction, if not a whole swarm. And I think this is where Samantha died.
yeah. You saw the swarm fly off. And I think that is all the time we have for this episode. So is there anything you wanted to say? Any last minute things?
No, but I do believe if we have the ability to do a third episode on D&D, I'm sure we could find plenty of topics to cover.
Oh,
'Cause
definitely.
There's plenty we haven't gone into yet.
Oh, yeah, there's definitely plenty we have not discussed yet. We haven't even discussed Eric. But I think we'll end the episode here, so thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you enjoyed this one. It was a part 2, and I will see you in the next one.